Welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. Hopefully technology works with this interview today because let's just getting in the way of my interviews. And so I want to introduce Dan. Dan is executive director of a nonprofit where he helps Indian children get educated. And so we're going to be talking all about his nonprofit and his work in India. India as in Bollywood, India as in Bangladesh, India as in India, not India being the U.S. So I'm really excited to talk to Dan today. So without further ado, I'm going to let Darren take it away.
How is everybody doing? Thank you, Wynn, for introducing me. So I just want to share a little bit about myself. I am the executive director of an organization in Indiana, in Indianapolis, Indiana, to be exact. And the organization that I founded is called ProAct Community Partnerships. And ProAct, we are a service learning organization where we strive to live out our mission. And that mission is to engage youth in public service that educates, delights, and inspires the youth and those they serve. So how we do that is we engage youth ages 10 to 18, and these are at-risk kids who are at risk for veering off their path in life, and they're more at risk of participating in illicit behaviors. And so we try to catch those kids early on to really instill in them a love for service, a love for self, and a love for others. And so we do that by engaging them in weekly community service opportunities as well as weekly workshops to teach them about different social issues that are affecting their community.
Now, my apologies for thinking you were working with international children. Geez.
No worries.
Working in the U.S. I'm so sorry.
No problem.
The U.S. is as great as international need. Like, right. Now, my next question is, do you take these kids into schools, or do you take these kids out of schools, or do you do after-school activities, or
Sure.
what?
Yeah, so our model is structured around after-school activities. So once a week, either on a weekday, on a Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll meet with our kids after school for their leadership workshop. And then it depends on the partner that we're working with, but we take them out of school and into the community once a month to really engage with the people in their community.
How cool. Now I'm going to ask you to do all my audience a favor, and I know this would be hard because it's like picking your favorite child question. With the work you do, and he's laughing at me, he knows what's coming. With the work you do, what has been the best non-processing moment that you have come up across?
The best what? I'm sorry?
Non-profit moment that you have interacted with the kids.
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Probably my favorite moments are, so I should start here. I mentioned before that we work with at-risk kids. And so these kids, they typically have a lifestyle and life experience that doesn't take them outside of their own communities. So all they know is what's around their block, the people in it. They see the same people day in and day out, and the environment that they're in is sometimes detrimental because these at-risk kids live in at-risk areas, and so they're crime-ridden. They are in areas that lack a sufficient income, so they're economically disadvantaged, and so they don't have the opportunity all the time to really get outside of their community. Now, my favorite moments then come when we get these kids in for the first time, and we're meeting them at the first workshop, and we ask these kids, what does community service mean to you? We ask every child that. And just about 70% of all the kids that we have served, they say that community service is something that happens when you get in trouble. It's a punishment.
Oh,
and so,
my, yes.
right.
Oh,
So when I hear this, some people, or when I share this story, some people laugh because they're like, what? You think of service work as a punishment? What? That's beyond me. But in their environment, in their communities, that's all they see are these young people, these juveniles getting in trouble for really trivial things. And because they get in the system, they get assigned community service to work off their debt to society. So the moments I enjoy most is when they get out and they do their first service project, and we see that light bulb moment come on their head, and it's right then and there that I see that these kids, they get it, that service is not a punishment. It's something that they can do that can be fun, it can be engaging, and they can learn something new at each service project. And they learn about new people, they learn something about themselves, and they learn something most importantly about the communities around them. And so those are my favorite moments.
oh my. And what led you to start this nonprofit?
Well, to make a long story short, I was one of those at-risk kids myself. So I grew up in a low middle income family, and my dad worked 3 jobs, my mom worked 2 jobs, and so to busy myself, I had to find other things to really keep my mind on task and out of the streets. And my parents did a good job because they were people of faith, and they really did a good job of instilling in me values that kept me away from the things that were taking me off track in my life. But in spite of all that, I still struggled with very low self-esteem. I struggled with a low sense of self-worth, and that mainly stemmed from a disability that I have. I have a stuttering problem. And with that stuttering problem, you can understand or kind of understand the stigma that was attached to me in school environments, in the community. And my stutter was so bad once I was younger that I just physically could not talk to people sometimes. It was physically impossible for me. But I still excelled in school, and I excelled in my academics. And so there were a few adults in my life that really looked at me and said, oh, this kid has potential. So they invested their time, they invested their money, and they invested their talents in helping me realize my own potential for myself. So they involved me in sports, and I got pretty good at athletics, so much so that I went to college to play football. And when I went to college, I was still struggling with these self-esteem issues, and I was still struggling with my stutter at the time, that my football coach asked about 20 of us football players to go on this mission trip to Botswana, Africa. And at first I said no. I said, Coach, I'm not going to no Africa. And I didn't go for 3 reasons, or I didn't want to go for 3 reasons, rather. I didn't want to go because I didn't feel comfortable sharing a story from the Bible with people overseas. People I didn't know. And where I was in my walk in my faith, I didn't really feel comfortable doing that. And 2, I couldn't afford the trip. It cost about $3,500 to go, and I could not afford that at the time. And the 3rd reason why I didn't want to go is that as a stutterer, I did not feel comfortable getting in front of a large group of people I didn't know and sharing the story. And so a few weeks later, my coach calls me up and says, Darren, all you have to do is get your passport and pack your bag because you're going to Botswana. And I said, oh, wow. Somebody paid for me? So that really ignited something inside me because I said, somebody wants me on this trip, me? What did they see in me to pay my way to go on this big trip? And so I go on this trip, and it just completely changed my life. I mean, when I was practicing my stories I was going to share in Botswana, what should have taken me 5 minutes took 15 minutes because I physically could not get through the story. But once I got tapped to share my story in front of the first village in Botswana, there was no stutter. And I told my story with such reverence that an older gentleman ran up to me and said, Darren, I will never forget you. You have changed my life. And at 20 years old, I never knew in my life experiences that I had anything of value to give to other people. And so that really just ignited a passion inside me that I wanted to serve others. And so after that trip, I sought out every single opportunity I could to serve my community. I've been to Ethiopia, to New Orleans, to South Africa, back to Botswana. I've been to Israel, and I've been all over the world and the country just serving others. And through that experience, I saw my character grow. I saw my self-esteem grow, and my stutter started to go away because I started to get more confidence in myself. So I said, what if I had this experience at a younger age? How would my life then be different? So after I got out of college, I said, I'm going to work for an organization that really engages youth in consistent community service work as a way to build character and their esteem. And there's nothing out there like that. So that's what gave me the vision to start ProAct, was that long story.
That long story, which I didn't interrupt. I let you go on because I think it's fascinating. For those of you who do not know, I have a physical disability. My physical disability is hemiplegia cerebral palsy. But getting back to Dan, I have a little bit of a secret that I'm going to let you guys in on. And my secret is that I used to have a little bit of a stutter myself, because not as bad as Dan, because of my speech impediment. And now with podcasting, my speech impediment has improved because I need to get on the mic and I need to do it. So
that's amazing.
And studying is a hidden disability that, well, it's not really hidden, I shouldn't say that, but people have lack of confidence issues because they stutter.
Right.
And so I had lack of confidence issues, you guys, because of my speech impediment. Now, granted, my speech impediment is not that bad, but to those who have issues like you and I did, Dan, what would you say to them listening to this podcast?
The best advice that I can give is that, and what I found in my experience, that anybody, no matter who you are, where you come from, how much money you have, or anything, right? No matter who you are, every single person has something that other people need. I think the key is to put yourself out there more and have the courage to really do what makes you happy. And that's what I did. I mean, I did what makes me happy, and that was simply serving other people and being there for them. And I found that I got more out of it in the end, and it made me feel good about myself because I knew that as long as we as people give a small piece of ourselves to make other people whole, we'll find in the end that we are going to be filled up more.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. Now, what is your favorite business book and your favorite podcast? that you turn to time and time again?
My favorite business book, I would say, is not necessarily a book, but it's a fable by Aesop. And Aesop has a fable that's very popular, and it is the tortoise and the hare. So I always remember that fable because in my business I've learned that it's not right or good to go fast and go at everything, go all out all at once, because you'll get burnt out like the hare did in the story. But if you're like the tortoise, you're going to win the race in the end if you do things slowly, methodically, and persistently. You're going to get to your goal at the end. And to me,
Exactly.
with building this organization and taking the building blocks and putting each piece together year by year, that's been the best lesson that I can tell from anything that I've read, right? And then as far as podcasts go, I don't really listen to podcasts actually. So, I would say now, when yours would be my favorite.
Being nice here. No, you don't have to be nice, Darren. You don't have to be nice. Yours would be my favorite. Geez, you're talking to a disabled crowd. Geez, you're talking to a crowd with speech impediments. You're talking to a physically disabled crowd. Yours would be my favorite.
I know, yeah, because I empathize. I think I like it. So, yeah.
Quit being nice. I've got that a couple times, and I feel honored that you say that. But I'm like, quit being nice to me because I don't want you guys to have a pity party for me. But as long as you emphasize with me, that is perfectly fine. Now, what would be your best advice for anyone in any industry that says, oh, I want to do what Darren does. I want to help the kids in my community. Oh, I want to start a non-profit. How would someone start a non-profit? How would someone get to the place where you're at today?
Well, I would say don't do what I did. The thing that I did was after college, I went right out and just all I wanted to do was get kids overseas. And the first project I had failed because the vision was way too big at the time that we were starting. And the goal was way too big. So I always tell people when you first start out, my best advice is to work for an organization that you like and that you love and get to know the ins and outs of that organization and of the nonprofit industry. Because nonprofits are much different than for-profit organizations. And so it's important for us to really learn that and learn what it takes to build an organization out. And my best advice to that end is to always start small. Nonprofits grow best when they're grassroots. And so once I figured that out, we just started to grow exponentially at that point. And instead of having a vision to simply get kids from their neighborhood in Indianapolis, Indiana to Ghana or Israel or to China, get them to the west side of town, get them to the nearest college campus, get them to these experiences that are right in their backyard, and let it grow from there. Because I've learned with consistency, with integrity, and with a little bit of courage, we can do and accomplish anything.
Yes, I definitely agree. And before I turn the mic over to you, where can people find you? How can people donate? How can people help you? Because you guys know I'm a big believer in education. I'm also a big believer in the disabled, and then with his previous disability, oh man, he's got a softie here. And so mixing the disabled and mixing the education aspect, how can people get a hold of you and how can people help you?
Well, you can help us by really supporting us. We have a website that you can donate, and the website address is proactindy.org. And on that website, you can see our events coming up, our donate button, and you can really see how you can get engaged in all the ways that you can work with us. We also offer programs for corporate groups in which we plan service projects and service days for corporate entities. So if your business or your company or even your nonprofit organization has a hard time finding opportunities, let us help you with that. Let us brainstorm with you on what you can do, how you can use your talents to really make a huge impact in your community. That's something that we can help with. And I always give out my personal cell phone number. It's 317-457-6799. Text me, call me anytime. My phone's always on. So those are some ways. And, of course, follow us on social media. All of our hashtags or all of our handles are ProActIndy on Facebook, on Twitter, and Instagram. And that will help us out a lot to get more exposure around the continental U.S.
And I know my team would help you guys out because you can lead off the water, but you can't make them drink. And I know that what Win believes in, my team is slowly starting to believe it. And if Win believes in his educational causes, and if Win believes in disabilities, my team will start believing with me. So now I'm going to turn the mic on to me and ask me 2 to 3 questions.
Sure. Well, Win, what is your favorite quotation of all time?
My favorite quotation of all time is, I'm actually going to give you 2. If you can dream it, you can live it. And that quote is by Danny Oculta, who happens to be my assistant. That is out of her book, If Dan Can Shred, You Can Do It Too. And you guys should look up her book on Amazon. And I'm going to give you a quote by Dr. Maya Angelou. People may forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
I love that quote.
Is by Maya Angelou. And if I had the opportunity to interview her, I would be thrilled. But she, unfortunately, is a great poet. I passed away, and I wish I had the opportunity to meet her at a conference because I love that quote myself.
Yes, likewise. I love that quotation. So what has been your greatest inspiration?
Oh, my greatest inspiration. My greatest inspiration is the work that I'm doing for the disabled and just seeing every single download of my podcast. I must be doing something right. I mean, people are sticking with me. And so being a giver, just like you, Dan, and I'm not making this up, is something that inspires me to keep going.
Good. That's awesome. Yeah, and then my last question to you then is, if you could have lunch with anybody in history, past, present, or future, who would it be?
Oh, God. If I could have lunch with anyone in history, past, present, or future, who would it be? It would be, and this will surprise people, it would be the head of Apple, Tim Cook, because I want to ask how he does it. How he does it. I mean, I want to ask him more about his branding than his products. I mean, for years I've been looking at a original iPod box with Bob Marley on the side of it. I think Apple is a wonderful, wonderful program and a wonderful, wonderful corporate brand, and they don't make a huge deal about disabilities. They just integrate everything into it. They just integrate Siri into a laptop and say, here's the laptop, and Siri comes right out of the box, and it's just a wonderful piece of equipment. And you guys know that I'm an Apple fan girl, and I would love to sit down with Tim Cook and say, how do you do it? How do you do your branding? Your Apple products are so cool, and I know they got a voice of artist to do Siri, but my God, it's like Apple is left, right, and center in non-profit industries, and every smartphone that goes out the door, if it's not Android, it's Apple.
Yeah. So Tim Cook and not Steve Jobs, huh?
Tim Cook, and that's going to surprise people because I have thought about it over the years, and I'm like, no, Tim Cook, and that will surprise people enough because a lot of people say Steve Jobs, and it's like, let's look at the future of Apple and let's look at the future of disabilities here. And Steve Jobs is not going to be doing it. It's now Tim Cook.
Right. Okay. That's a good point. It's a good point. All right. Well, good. Well, those are my 3 questions then for you.
Those 3 questions would shock people. And so I always ask, you took one of my questions and turned it on me. I always ask, if you had to be educated by anyone, who would it be? And that is going to ask you. And I'm also going to ask you why.
Why? Wow. Yeah, there are a lot of great thinkers from many books I've read that I would love to learn from. But probably the one that sticks out to me the most is, that's a tough one, Wynn. You turn around on me, huh?
Yes.
Let me think. If I had to choose anybody, it might be, and this would be weird, all right? But Will Smith. Will Smith is someone, he's one of my favorite actors, 1. And 2, I just love everything that he stands for. He stands for family, he stands for service, and he really is a good individual that I would love to sit down with one time and just pick his brain a little bit, because he has a lot of great insight into what it means to be a success and what it means to be successful. So that's a weird one, but if I were to pick one person or one brain to pick, it might be his.
Well, that's a great one. As I said to you, Tim Cook would be mine, but that's a great one because when you think about it, Will Smith is the best person on the planet. I mean, as we said, he's into family and he's into all this stuff, not only movies and making millions and millions of dollars, and it's not weird to idolize Will Smith.
Right. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you, and it's not weird to idolize Tim Cook, and I apologize for my coughing at that, you guys. Geez.
Oh, you're fine.
I'm fine, Dan. No, my podcasting skills are not the best today because life got in the way. But I appreciate everyone's time today, and I appreciate you listening to Dan and I Speak. And this podcast is actually sponsored by Kidda. Kidda is a Twitter desktop app that you can create hashtags of your own. You can compose tweets and put hashtags with them, or they have pre-composed tweets, and then they have special hashtags, so you guys can check that out in the show notes. This podcast is also sponsored by Grit, which is athletic line out of California, and they're generously giving you guys a 20% off code. And please, 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 please go support Dan and his wonderful non-profit. And please just go support educational causes, even if you don't support Dan. Just go support educational causes, because teachers have a hard enough time dealing with kids. God knows I am one, and we have a hard enough time. So we need all the nonprofits in the educational sector who want to help us to help us. But
absolutely,
how the nonprofits are going to stay afloat is if you guys help. So please, 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 and Darren is saying exactly, please go support Darren's nonprofit, and everything will be in the show notes. You guys, how to find the show notes of any podcast is if you click on the cover, if you're listening in iHeartRadio and in Stitcher and in iTunes, it will automatically turn around and it will be in the show notes, and you can click on the link, go to Dan's website, automatically make a donation, and please just support Dan and all his incredible work. Thanks to you guys.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Wynn.
Thank you.
No problem.